What I can do it.
Oh, so we're ready.
Almost.
Okay.
Very short.
Who's made a motion?
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
It's now 5 o'clock.
Are you ready, Kim?
Yes.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. And I'm filling in for Greg G. Feller, who is away on vacation. So we will call to order and have a roll call of the board. So Tim,
Jim Gumber, Aaron Salzer, Brett Boyer,
Joan Jeter.
Mark Vera,
Alex Birch.
Stephen Gerard.
Okay, so please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so introduction of visitors. JR, you want to start?
Sure, J.R. Norvell with DO Engineers.
Cory Safer, with Teal Engineers.
Okay, Steve?
Steve Anderson.
Elizabeth Roach.
Mike Minkowski, Nelson Erickson,
Darcy Belcher with Resort Beach.
Jim Thorpe.
Jeremy Davin, Giselle Sky.
Linda, Airport. Cam Airport.
Okay, very good. So,
You would like me to read who's online as well.
oh yeah, please read who's online. I forgot we were online.
Online is Commissioner Bill Brooks, Aaron Boo with TO, and then Kathy, who I believe is Jim Walsh.
Okay,
And then there's another person just George Schaefer as well.
okay. All right, so call for any conflicts of interest from the board? No? Changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. And you all had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting. So any questions or changes? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Okay,
Second.
second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. All right, so our first item on the agenda is the minimum standards update, which you all received, I believe, at some point last week. We had requested that Stephen mark and read the changes that were made in here. I hope you've all had a chance to review it. Is there any questions, any discussion, anything like that the board would like to bring forward?
There was one, I don't have it on me, but there was the one section on vehicle markings.
Yeah.
With the checkers and stuff. on it.
So it has to do with the AC on airport vehicles. We had a conversation with our cert inspector that they would prefer to see commercial vehicles have some sort of reflective markings, especially
So we limited the commercial. vehicle.
commercial vehicles. That's it.
So our fuel trucks.
Your fuel trucks.
Stuff over there.
Yeah, like your vehicles that you own, that's what it is. Like if you look at our vehicles now, they've got a placard who identifies them, numbering, got a 6-inch reflective stripe on them, light bars, that kind of thing. It's meant for commercial vehicles.
Right, so we get that standard
Yeah,
sent out to the.
yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We don't expect it to be into effect probably for at least a year.
Right.
That's whenever you guys get the opportunity. We're probably gonna view it as any new vehicles that come onto the field must meet this standard. Any old will be grandfathered, it is left alone.
Any other discussion or concerns, questions?
A question on signage, it's already in there,
What
but
page?
page 15. And so it's just changing who approves that, but I was curious, does the county have sign standards or that would apply out here?
Yes. They do. They have signage standards for the county, but they also rely on the airport to ensure that they don't cause glare issues, it's a very much a conversation between the airport and downtown that doesn't cause a sign problem or a lighting issue typically. So I don't think if anybody that's asked for a sign, I don't think we've denied it.
Are you talking about traffic lights?
No,
No.
signage. right.
Signage lights, okay.
Yeah, for example, like resorts and Stancraft, they both requested signage on the outside of their buildings. It's typically, it's commercial entities that are asking, it's not, there's very few private hangars that have ever asked for any signage.
So let me ask the board a question. Seems like a few of you have notes in the margins. Do you want Stephen to hit the highlights of this, or do you want to go through your,
It's up to you guys, we don't have to take action, if you want to have more time to review it, we can come back and set a date. It's realistically, as you went through, there's not that much changing in it.
no, there isn't, it's pretty minimal.
There was mostly a couple wording issues, there was adding for skydiving, there was
Definitions,
the definitions for skydiving.
Limiting
IRVFR.
operations. Is that-
Yeah, the,
There's this section here that talks about the restrictions, how it would work.
Right.
It goes to the board. The one thing that the OCC kind of made a comment about is for an emergency situation that the airport director may institute a restriction on a temporary basis until like such time that something that the board may move to this process. Right. We just haven't updated it because we haven't had this meeting.
Right. So Brett, do you want to go? Do you have other notes or comments?
I think I had a couple, on page 16, could you just, it's the county reserves the right to charge for all the new facilities, cost of development for all utility infrastructure. Can you explain this?
So that has to
That'll
do,
work.
as take Gulfstream Road development, for example. You're charging back the tenants that are signing those leases. We don't identify that as part of the minimum standards, but we need to identify that the leases and minimum standards don't mirror, so we need to add that clause to the minimum standards so that they coincide with each other. Does that make sense? Because right now, the tenants on the Gulfstream Road are actually paying to install all the sewer, water, gas, utility, every utility on there to do that. It's up, the county's not really paying anything for it, other than being the middleman for it. So it's just updating the document so it coexists with the leases.
So as far as the cost for that, who figures that when they come in? Explain that.
So realistically, it's the cost of the installation. It's
Just to pass through.
a pass through, it's 1.2 million for that cost, and we're really dividing it out by those lots. And that's what the cost is.
As far as, it looked like you had made all the changes for the skydiving that we talked about.
Yeah.
And so before we had language in there about like a period of time or something like that, that's all out.
That's all out. The only time limit, any time thing is there is the radio calls, that they have to do a 5-minute call, 1-minute call, when jumpers are away, and then
Isn't that all regulated by the FAA?
it's pretty much all regulated.
So why are you bringing that down to the surface and then having an oversight on that?
That way we're just-
Over,
We're just reminding people that they have to do it.
do we have to remind the kids in the airplanes to make radio calls for left and right traffic?
Technically, we do, but then they're just put, we're supposed to make radio calls.
But that's not outlined in the regular documentation.
We
It
can
makes
remove
this
it,
look special is my only concern.
and we can remove it, because it was actually pulled from another document. We can remove it, if I don't care either way. But it's just, like I said when we started, it was pulled from another document.
I believe we made it 5 minutes as opposed to
So 3 minutes or something.
so that
There was
more time for people in the pad, et cetera.
So how many times do we have long final calls? We have quite a few.
Right, absolutely. And again, that goes against the standards, but you don't police that. The airport doesn't police that. That's an FAA issue. That's my only concern is that, if we're not gonna go out and start policing everybody that's, we're singling out a single group is the problem.
I mean, we have the right to set standards for each independent group. If we can make them
So
more.
if the flight schools become a problem, or get too congested, you can start limiting their operations and.
Yep.
Okay.
So any other discussion on that particular item from the other members of the board?
Just skydiving or?
Well, his
Okay.
comments in general about the time. Of
I
request.
have one more.
Oh, okay. If hearing none,
I'm done with that.
then we can move forward, Brett. What page are you on?
54.
Okay,
I was just trying to figure out how that, the aircraft maintenance, and then the SASO, I know we were looking up and you mentioned what that meant. Is it might,
So we identified SASOs in the FBOs. But we realized that when we were updating this, we never identified them as an independent SASO. And so they were never treated as a separate item. And really, this is identifying them as their own thing.
So originally they were lumped,
They were-
maintenance was lumped in underneath the
The FBO,
FBO, and now it's its own. independent.
it has the ability to be its own thing.
Like the avionics shop over here.
Well, the avionics shop was identified, it's just that
Yeah.
the aircraft mechanic wasn't.
Yeah.
We just, it was mixed, because it was identified under the FBO and usually, let's face it, most of the time you see maintenance shops associated with an FBO. I mean, you're a special case, but you're not a true open to the public maintenance shop either. So that was a realization that we had. We've also had some questions about, well, what is the minimum standard safety? So,
okay, it was just like plopped in their aircraft maintenance side, so that explains it. It was like, well,
yeah,
it's here by itself. And
Yeah, that's why, because it's still identified as an operation thing inside an FBO, but it can still activate as its own separate entity.
So if I want to open up Mark's aircraft maintenance,
AMP shop. There you
I
go.
will abide by, and I have current guidance. with it.
Yes.
that's all.
I don't want to do that, by the way.
So Stephen, were there specific parts of this that you wanted to discuss with us, or?
I had just as, what do you guys want to talk about?
Okay. Okay,
This is the recommendation that we have. Like I said, there's not any substantial.
no, it's pretty,
The most part of it is the skydiving and the maintenance, it's clean.
Just posted somewhere so the public can see that.
And that's the next question is technically, we can post it out. If the board's comfortable. Or it can go straight to the BOCC. It's kind of up to what the board wants.
so first of all, is there any further discussion, questions, et cetera, with this document from anybody on the board? You all had a chance to review it. You're okay? Okay. So it is listed as an action item. So if you want this to go forward, I do need a motion. And
I'll make a
second.
motion to delay that. Let's put it out there to the public so that we can get some comment on it.
I'll
and
second that.
Okay,
See where that goes.
okay.
My question is how long do you want it out?
Well,
Until the next
next
meeting.
Which will be January.
We're not doing December.
No, not at this point. Most
Okay.
likely not.
So make it the end of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that works.
Okay, would you like to modify your
That's
motion?
I'll modify the motion, put that out for public comment, someplace where people can find it. So that they can see changes that are going forward,
So
comment on
why don't you just like close it at the end of the year and then,
Yeah, so what we'll
so
do
you
is,
can wrap up anything.
what we'll do is we'll,
Sorry.
it. No worries.
based on the motion, this is the board, what the board directs. The airport will post it onto our website with the notice that if for comments, you must email the airport general email. And then all comments must be received by 5 or 5 PM on January 2nd.
Okay.
First.
And it gives us time to look at the comments prior to the
Board
next
meeting.
meeting.
Right,
Okay.
so is your motion modified to reflect that date?
It is said date.
Does that date work?
Whatever first day of, after the meeting, how about that?
First business day or first?
Monday the 3rd.
Let's do Monday the 3rd then.
Okay.
As previously motioned. If there's a second, I'm good with that.
Okay, do you still have a second, Tim?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Tim, are you
You
seconding?
second?
You got it, whatever.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion. We have a motion to put this out to the general public and response back by January 3rd, 5 PM, close the business day. And so we have a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? Okay, so that's what we'll do. All right. Moving right along. Construction in process, the CIP plan discussion. Stephen, are you leading that off?
I will be some of that stuff. Some of that's gonna be handed over to Corey with TR Engineers.
Okay,
If I can get it started. So kind of a bit of background. So every year we have to do a capital improvement plan update to the FAA and the state. And this is the time frame we do it. We've already started working through it, the FAA. It will be the first to say our CIP is weird. Typically, airports have the ability to dictate what they want. However, because of the decoupling and the FAA's want to have that done, they're more dictating to us when they have a funding mechanism. So the lot of years, we have very little choice in how this is going to be spent. We're still looking at quite a bit of funding in the future, but this is pulled from our master plan. It talks about what our future projects look like, everything that's going to be. As you can tell, there's a lot of different pavement and new add-ons and things like that. And before we kind of get started, do you have any questions about what's upcoming? And if we're not, I'm handing it over to Corey. Or JR, who's running this.
That'd be me. I'll do this.
I forgot my clicker, so I haven't run. I forgot it.
He's a clicker.
I'm the clicker.
So basically, this is what was in our master plan for the airport and but we have,
There's a remote on it, there's a laser on it. This one? Yeah, there's a laser button at the top. Oh, the port.
oh, nice. All right, we can go to the next one. Basically, this discussion was after the last meeting, you guys wanted to know kind of what was in store for the airport over the next 5 years. And so we broke it down into 2-year clumps. And it does come down to what the FAA has budgeted for the airport over the next, basically it's through 2028. So the first 2 years, so next year, there's 4 projects consisting of the construct SRE building and airport manager's office. Acquire our truck, construct electrical improvements for decoupling and design the mill and inlay of runway 624. And that would also include the taxiway B4, which would be taking out the middle. So it would be also N4. It would be the to the east of the D intersection. And then 2023 is actual construction of the mill and inlay and the taxiway B4. And that comes to a total of 6.4 million in federal dollars and 7.2 in total dollars. And then you can see the local and state, we're kind of estimating those because lately the federal dollars have been for 100%, but we'll see what they come up with over the next year. Due to COVID and stuff, they funded it all. So if you go to the next slide, This just shows, the mill and inlay, and that's the little connector. In replace of this one, eventually this one's gonna go away because it's, not as safe. And then the electrical improvements basically are taking the, old airport vault building and bringing the power from the new airport vault building over to the, 220 and taxiway out the, power system. And then also putting the airport beacon over on that side. So then, 2024, 4 projects there, and acquire snow removal equipment building or equipment, so the great big multifunction equipment piece that would go in the new building. Design and construct taxiway F, which would be the west section of that, all the way to the runway 6 end. Design taxiway A reconstruction and acquire land, so it would be the parcel of land. If you go on to the next slide, you can see where it is. The by Ramsey Road and the airport's property, the first chunk of land, and then this is the connection down here. So these budget numbers are based on estimating, they're not set in stone for any, it's basically round numbers for us to try and budget with the FAA to get the dollars in the right spot. They might be, well, it seems like lately they've been more because of the inflation. And then acquire SRE, so that's through 2025, and how much was that? It was like another,
There's 7 million.
yeah, 7 million, so there's a lot of money out there that the FAA is gonna have to come up with to get this airport up to standard so that the decoupling can happen at the end of this window. So if you go forward 2 more, or 3 maybe. So then 2026 to 2028, it would be actual reconstruction of taxiway A, which is definitely needed. Design and construction of the decoupling in 2026. And then extending taxiway D3, which is one of the hangar taxiways, ends, and it would be just for development in future hangars. Acquiring land, it would be the other section, kind of by Atlas Road on the north side for future development and that sort of thing. And then reconfiguring the geometry just right outside of this building to connect taxiway Delta in straight and then to get the connection off onto runway 20. And then at the very end, it would be another master plan update and oh, and I got it backwards. The acquiring land would be the navigation easements for there's a little easement that is needed out by Arrow Drive. And then at the very end, 2028 is the other 72 acres on the north side. So if we go to the next one, so that's 8.8 million and 9 in total project fees. Anyway, there's the D3, the little extension here, which would kind of infill this area for hangars. And then this other big piece of property for the future, and then the decoupling here. Which is FAA push right there, and then fixing this little area down here so that the taxiway would come in straight and then and it wouldn't have that crooked intersection. And then the little navigation easement is right down there. So, which is a lot of work for the 24 million in the next 6 years. In total, and 21.7 in the FAA that they've been planning. So basically the rest is just kind of to go through that how AIP gets their money from the federal 3.2 billion from the FAA, and that there's state apportionment that comes to each airport within the state of Idaho. Then there's some things on what's eligible for funding, and it's mainly just airport infrastructure and safety things, hangars and landscaping, that sort of thing. Fuel farms are not eligible. So then I did a summary over what has been FAA funded over the past 16 years here, and it comes to $18.8 million from the FAA. That's not in total dollars, so it's probably almost $20 million in total dollars. And then local contributions, you can see at the, oops, the wrong thing. At the bottom, there's the 0% match over the past couple of years due to the COVID. But anyway, lots of work has been funded by the FAA over the past 16 years, keeping this airport up in good shape, running well. This just basically breaks down the, the pie, that the 9% federal dollars. We budget when we do the cost estimating 7.5% local funding and 2.5% in state grant funding. And it's it depends upon what the states get in for the revenue on what they give out. They give up to 5%, but we always budget 7.5 just in case the state doesn't get enough revenue to bring up the whole 5%. And so then the Coeur d'Alene match comes, from leases and their fuel flow fees, and it could come from bonding, any sort of, I don't know what a special event would be, but anyhow, they have done bonds in the past to do like infrastructure. It was in the early 90s, they did the taxiway D12 area with a bond to get the water and sewer in there, so. That's it. You guys have any questions?
I have a
Go ahead.
question. They were surveying over around our building and over by Stancraft over there. What's that all about?
There's two different things. The first on the west side of your building is we're gonna put in the rotating beacon, and then behind the little vault building, a generator for so if the lights go out or whatever, power source for the runway lights. And then on the Stancraft side, they're gonna put in they're working on another hangar number 3.
Okay, so the rotating beacons going over there.
It is,
When's that gonna happen?
Next year,
Okay.
it'll be on a
Put it
pole.
right where the jumpers come in?
I'll be south of there.
Oh, so,
We're gonna snuggle it up right next to that building, so,
okay.
or we're gonna try and get it as close as we can, so it's outside of the side slopes.
Probably one other thing that's worth mentioning is the new infrastructure bill that was just passed. Includes about $3 billion annually for the AIP program. So to put that in perspective, the whole bill right now is $3.2 billion annually, so it's almost doubling that for the next 5 years for airports. It doesn't specifically lay out what that's going to go towards. There are some pretty big chunks for the commercial airports. The SeaTacs of the world are getting the bulk of the funding. But what that will do, and what we anticipate, is funding breaking loose from other areas that'll filter down to especially the larger GAs like Coeur d'Alene and even potentially some of the smaller GAs in our state. So we're very optimistic about that, and my recommendation is to stay out in front of these projects and have projects ready to go. Things like the land acquisition on the north side have very low priority on the federal ranking system for being reimbursed, but if there was ever a time that you might sneak in on those low priority items from the FAA, I would say these next few years are it. So that's how things sit right now on that side of things. I think recently we got a very small AIP grant that came to
We received a $59,000 grant for, I don't know what it was called.
basically anything you want.
Yeah, it was-
It's legal.
There was another CARES style grant.
Did you get another pickup truck?
We didn't get a pickup truck first time, we did two of them.
But to put that in perspective, like a commercial service airport, like I don't remember what Spokane's was, but like Pullman and Walla Walla and those guys were getting about $1.5 million out of it. I think Spokane is somewhere in the 20 million range, and SeaTac was like 230 million. And we got
59,000.
59,000. So it's very much focused on those that were impacted the most by COVID, which is appropriate. And those are the commercial airports that are not generating parking revenue and passenger facility charges like they once were.
They are now.
Well, they aren't generating the parking revenue, but they are the PFCs. for sure. Anyway,
Good. On state grants, do you actually have to apply for those, or how does that work?
So with state grants, it's kind of it's part they do the same kind of, unless it's approved by the FAA, they typically will award a grant for. You can get outside grants from the state, but I've never seen them do it. So it's been a weird.
So Brett, we basically take that same federal grant application that we turn in for the AIP portion of the project, that we turn into the FAA, and we submit that to the state at the same time with the same amounts, and they issue a grant. It typically aligns anywhere from 2.5% to 5% of the project. As Stephen said, just depending on how much money they have. So they work hand in hand with the FAA on all capital improvement planning for the state, for these GA airports, and help allocate. And in fact, what happens is the state is in charge of the capital improvement plan for all general aviation airports in the state. And then they submit their recommendations to the FAA, and then the FAA either takes those or not. Because we're such a unique animal at Coeur d'Alene for a GA airport, and I say unique because of the volume of traffic and the operations, the level of operations that are here are incredible compared to any other GA. We actually work directly with the Helen ADO more than any other GA in the state. Because
On the local funding side, so you had the county, but does the county have a capital improvement plan, and are those numbers in that plan?
The airport does have some fund balance to cover a lot of this, but there lies our problem. We don't have enough to cover all this in the next 5 years. And the county doesn't typically plan far out. So, I mean, if they plan 2 years, that's their average.
So what would happen if the local funding doesn't exist? Does the project
Project
stop?
doesn't happen.
Okay.
And then you have the FAS, depending on the type of project, the FAA is going to be very displeased. So if it's a project, a true safety project that they've identified, like the decoupling, that's a project we have to fund.
So you go in on your budget process every year requesting,
So the airport, or the county does not budget grant money.
Okay.
It's a very odd system that whether we agree with it or not is not up to us. It's how they choose to do it. We provide the auditor's office with our CIP, we provide the BOCC with it.
we need to change that. So, okay.
I can't answer a question I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, John.
It seems like a very odd situation. So, okay, any other discussion regarding the CIP funding? And this was just a point of information for us.
Just a point of information, if you like the presentation, we can distribute it. It's just, if you'd like, just a, we try to update everybody, about this time every year about what our CIP is for the next 6 years. So.
and I guess Commissioner Duncan did attend our meeting with the
Right.
FAA.
Yes.
That we had to review this capital improvement plan with the FAA and the state. And so she was up to speed, and then I think.
Greg attended as well, so.
Okay, perfect. Do you need a motion from us? No, okay. Everyone's good?
No.
Okay. So moving along, staff reports.
We continue to move forward with the deed and just actually we're out seeding again today. And we'll see what happens with that.
Is this the makeup for the
Yes.
non-growing
This
grass?
is the non-growing grass.
The weeds cool.
It's mostly weeds and some crabgrass that doesn't need spec.
Okay.
So it's, we'll go with it's interesting right now. We'll see what happens in the next year if whether grass grows, because technically we are retaining a percentage of the project, so we are holding that. We actually, should actually say electrical work now. We've signed this contract and we are working through the construction safety plan on how to basically figure out how to get the plan from electric lighting systems to lighting systems, and we're working through that right now. Also placing locations for lighting, all the lighting systems, the beacon, things like that, everything, so we're citing all that, those fun things. Also working through days work, and then we'll be bidding this out this next spring. So perimeter fence, that should be basically done. We're basically working on the final documentation for it with the FAA. The SRE design, we're just waiting for hopefully better bidding climate. Gulf Stream Road utility. We're moving forward with this, but we're having some issues with the cost of materials suddenly, so the contractors having some conversations with us. So. Infinity ramp, we actually had some conversations with some people on the hangar waiting list about the Infinity ramp, which is located to the near Infinity Electronics. It's going to hold about 7 hangars. The issue is we're actually discussing this today, myself and TL, about how to not cheapen it, but make the cost of the utility infrastructure cheaper.
Value engineering.
Value engineering to this, because right now it's looking at about $70,000 per hangar.
Ouch.
Just to install. So, and we had a conversation about with the hangar tenants, the possible hangar tenants, or whether they even have interest in it. Actually, most of them said yes, still.
At that price?
At that price. We were a little surprised. And we were basically went into that meeting, I went into that meeting assuming that we would be cutting half of the hangars out as having utilities other than gas and power. And that's it, or doing none of it and just shelving the project until a later date. But we are out of hangar space, so. Rehabilitation, we've started some design scoping methodology for this so that the FAA can review this. And most people don't realize that for a project that is in 2023, we start planning that project now. And we're gonna have that scoping is already done. Our negotiation is already done. Another year, so that's the SEC for approval.
Not yet, no, we just had the phase, and we're gonna do the.
As you can see, we have miscellaneous on calls. We'll actually have the sewer study starting. We've submitted that. Unfortunately, as everything else has gone up, that's gone up too. We've also done ATC planning study in conjunction with Mead and Hunt. And that's just a preliminary planning study to prepare us, because as we've talked about in the past, the FAA is data driven. Everything they want is data. And we need to be prepared to respond cohesively and collectively, and also get our congressional delegates on board and understand what we're fighting for, what we're trying to do. And that's kind of the idea behind this agreement. We did a wildlife training on the 27th. None of you guys showed up. I was kind of disappointed.
I was training my wildlife.
It was just a good training. We still have category exclusions going on for a couple different areas that we see future expansions. We're starting to work through what the FAA wants for that. The northeast area, the northwest areas, we're starting to have conversations just for future. We have multiple 7460s going on for different hangar developments. I don't even know what our last count was for. A lot. We also have some utilities for Delta that we're working through, because there's 2 additional hangars that we could build off of the end of Delta. Both of which found that they're actually in the city of Hayden, not in the airport. So, I'm the county.
Interesting.
There's about 100 acres, I think, no, more than that. About 200 of our, about 12 or 1,300 acres are actually in the city of Hayden. And so we'll have to work through with city of Hayden, how that works. Especially for buildings, because we can't. I put it this way, we've trained our building department not to require things that cause conflicts for us. For example, silt fences. They're a FOD issue for an airport, but they're required on every other building structure in the county. So they're removed from every plan that we deal with. So it's just one of the things that are constantly conversations with our building department, through the county building department. And CIP was October 1st. We had a meeting discussing it and ensuring that we were all understanding, because the states was different. Going that. It led to some confusion on our part. It was some confusion with the FAA. We had a conversation, actually a pretty good conversation. As JR said, Commissioner Duncan was in attendance. It was a good experience to have her see the how the FAA operates. So, but then also we continue to, we're going to be working at the airport to fill in our hole that we made for the admin space. That should be done here hopefully next week. We continue to get our snow removal equipment prepped for this winter. So we're slowly moving on and moving up in that way. The airport is actually fully staffed at this point in time as well. We were down a position last month as well. But we just hired a new mechanic last week. Any questions?
Yes. This is not really on the agenda, but is there any discussions going on yet about the Hutter Road extension around the airport?
We've had some conversations with Glenn Miles with KMPO.
Okay.
So the airport and county have agreed, and the FAA agreed to what is on the master plan,
Okay.
which allows for the road to go through the outer third of the northern 624 extension of the RPZ. If there's anything different shown, any other item throughout their EA, the airport must oppose it because it is creating a conflicting plan. So
And did KMPO agree to that?
KMTO is aware of that and understands that.
Okay. Is that something we should maybe put on the agenda for further discussion in January, or is that too early?
It is more of a, we'll deal with it internally as they move through their EA. Because right now they're just selecting their EA consultant. I've also met with the No Hutter bypass group. And it's realistically, it's the airport's position that any road that provides additional access, any better routes as a positive. However that comes about, that's not really the airport's purview. We're not engineers, roadway engineers. We just want to see additional roadway infrastructure. Would we prefer it not take our land? Sure. But that's not where our expertise is.
Anything else for Stephen? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, Coeur d'Alene Airport Association, a number of you are here. Is there anyone speaking on behalf of the association?
I will speak as a board member of the association.
Okay, can you hear him okay? Okay.
So first of all, I want to thank you for deferring action on the modifications to the rules and minimum standards.
Steve, can you come closer? It's not picking up.
Sure.
You have a mic switch here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for that. I think all of you were copied on an email that I sent out on behalf of the association. And I wasn't exactly sure how that would work. One of the problems that we know is that sometimes we don't get the agenda until a day or two before the meeting. And if we don't see it, we don't have an opportunity to really address the issues that are on the agenda. And as I said in one of the last meetings that I was at, we want to develop a relationships with the director and with the advisory committee where we're actually a part of the solution and less adversarial by understanding what decisions are being made and being a part of those. And so I guess we'll have an opportunity to comment. I'm not sure what will happen with the comments and what procedure takes place there to where we know that the comments were considered and you know, how they were weighted. But a thought occurs to me that it would be very helpful if at least Harry Praviato, who is the chairman of the association, would get a copy of any advanced materials that this group gets in advance of your meetings, so that we could see if there's something that we want to participate in or comment on, and hopefully be added to the agenda or have an opportunity to do that before action is taken. So if Stephen wants to come to our association meetings and address us, it would be very helpful to see what is in the CIP. I mean, I would like to get a copy of the information that was presented here tonight, because I certainly can't take notes fast enough to, you know, absorb all of the information that's here. And it's important to all of us that are stakeholders out here, as well as to the advisory committee, you know, in making decisions on this. We'd like to be able to offer objective and helpful contribute to the solution. So there's that. One point that came up last night that I think we will pursue, and we've had some interaction, I think, with Stephen with regard to the AWAS. There's apparently a new AWAS system that we have that gives only the weather information when you get on that channel. And you can address this hopefully, Stephen. But several of our members have gone out to the people that have provided that system to the Coeur d'Alene Airport and said that there are modifications that can be made to that would allow, for instance, someone, if there's an incident out on a runway or something, and there's an inbound traffic that has read the NOTAMs, but this happened between the time they read a NOTAM and the time that they arrived, to have that type of information come out. But specifically, what was addressed was when the tower was in operation last summer, because the AWAS system doesn't say that, you know, the normal Unicom channel is not the channel to be communicating on here. You're supposed to just know that. We had inbound traffic from some remote areas that came in, communicated on 122.8 and presented a conflict to some of the things that were being handled by the air traffic control here. So we would like to pursue that further. I mean, I
can address that. If you'd
Okay.
like.
So, yeah.
So if you're right, it's like, what it is, the problem is we don't own it. The systems that everybody talks about, like everybody talks about Sandpoint,
Mhm.
they own that system. We don't own ours. Ours is owned, operated by the FAA. And the only people that can actually modify and do anything on it is the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service has determined they don't want anybody on.
So can we have one like Sandpoint?
I don't wanna take the responsibility of owning an operating ambulance.
Well, and I understand that, but the point was made that do you also want to take on the liability of potential mid-air collisions? I mean, for one example, but you know, another example was, you know, if someone has a blowout on runway 6 and they're coming in and that runway is closed and they don't have an option to go to one of the other ones, they might know when they got here that the runway was Xed out or whatever, but it would be nice to be able to know that ahead of time. So, and you would immediately know that if you switched over to the AWS channel. Anyway, I don't want to I don't want to belabor that point, but Stephen, we would like to pursue that with you and maybe with the county commissioners. If you don't want to take on the liability, there's liability both ways, and which one is the one that you know?
And we've talked about giving an AES, but the AES is, who's gonna take responsibility for the AES? And it's also, the number the FAA threw around was a minimum of 100,000. And that's just to add it. I mean, and the problem is they're telling me just to move our computer for the AWAS, which is right back there, to move it to the R station is $130,000.
And that's crazy, and I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to belabor that. I just wanted to let the advisory board know that this is an issue to a number of the people that were at the meeting last night. We had a good meeting. We really want to, become more of a community here. We're going to have a pancake feed at the No Limits place on Saturday morning from 9 to 12. And hope that people show up. We'd like to be, an active part of the community, and so. We had some other folks that were here, Jim, Mike, if you want to add to or take away from anything that I've said here, please do.
So Steve.
So I have a question. So when the tower is operational, aren't they the main communicator for the airport?
So we've actually had this argument with the FAA about this.
Okay.
And their comment was, is so long as everybody does what's legal and proper, which their comment is as well, NOTAMs are the way to notify people about it.
Right.
It's safe and efficient. That's the issue, is they continue to go back to that.
No.
This doesn't matter what I argue with them on this, so they continue to go back. We have proper ways, there's ways in place to properly communicate that. I agree that if somebody's coming in and there's an incident, but also if there's an incident, I have staff here most of the time.
Radios are monitored, and they do a pretty
We
good job
do
of
it,
communicating, so.
If we hear somebody calling on it, I'm on, say something, say aircraft's on 20, we hear somebody calling in final, hey, runway 220 is closed, must go to 2624. So we're responding, we deal with everybody.
You did a good job with me. I got a flat on 220 a month ago, and your staff was immediately out there to help me, and the runway was closed, and I caused some inconvenience. But I mean that I'm hopefully not speaking just for myself here. I'm trying to communicate what the general consensus and feeling was for the group.
I've tried this 3 times with the FAA and I failed every time because they're like, well, we run into the NOAA and NOAA just says no.
Stephen, I have a question. When did the ownership of that system change hands?
The FAA has always owned it.
Because it used to be, I've been here for a while, since '05. And I remember Linda's voice used to come on there and say, we've got slush on the runway. And it was great having that notification.
That was the system allowed us to do at that time. And then
Yeah,
we
so that's-
updated it.
So
We
after it
have
was
no-
updated, it changed over.
It wasn't the ownership that changed. It was, they had, from what the story that I heard from them was they had funding available to upgrade from an antiquated system that they felt. Because they hadn't done that, but the back end was antiquated.
So antiquated is kind of a relative term because it seems like they've gone backwards.
But it's technologically better.
Technologically, it was
It is,
antiquated.
and so we'll buy it, okay? So I have another comment. Is it public comment time?
Well, it's the,
Oh, okay. I'm
It's
speaking for the
the-
I am a director of this, one of the directors of the association, so I'll just continue on here. Steve mentioned, notification on the county website for upcoming advisory board meetings. May I just make a suggestion that we kind of standardize that at like 1 week? Is that possible? Because I notice sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's 5 days, and I don't know how busy you folks are in the office, and maybe that's the driver.
Are you talking the airport website or the
The
county?
county website, and
and
you're a subgroup of the county website, so if you go there, because I spent time going every day looking at a week in advance saying, oh, what's going on? And then it wasn't until 2 days before that I saw it pop up.
so that gets posted, as I understand it, from the admin staff at the county, which we
We
have no.
actually do ours.
Oh, you do
but
yours?
it's-
Okay,
It's a law, we have to post it 48 hours in advance. So we don't want to post it more than 48 and then change it.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay, so we just have to stay on top of that. So,
Alright.
so we're pretty much guaranteed that if we check in 48 hours in advance, we're gonna find out what's going on. Okay, that's fine. I just needed to know what was going on there. Well, let's see, this kind of has to do, maybe I should wait until,
yeah, we are gonna have a
Now-
public comment section here in just a
good.
minute, so, so is there any other airport advisory board update stuff?
I
And
have one question.
okay, go ahead, Stephen.
So we emailed the association email, and we haven't gotten a response in the past. Can we get an updated contact list of who we want to contact? Because that's part of our problem, I think, is we don't know who you, realistically, until that came out recently, we weren't even sure who was the board members, who was the president, who was everything. So if you can share with us who, what,
We'll make that happen.
what do you want
It's
to
getting
accomplish?
reorganized. It's got the big sign under new management. Okay, so it's getting fixed, but it takes time, as you well know, running an organization to get things going, even as small as we are.
Yep, we have no problem sharing, we can include you in the board packet that we email out. It's just, we need to know who you want it to.
We'll get that to you. I'll commit that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because if we don't, I don't know who to give it to.
Understood.
So I think typically we give that, unless it's something like the advisory board, it typically goes out on a Friday. The Friday is before the board. 'Cause that's typically when we establish our agenda. So, and it may be subject to change, like on Monday, if we have something that pops up that we need to address, but typically the board packet will go out on that day. So, and it may not include everything we're gonna talk about, like the CIP is not on there because, it's presentation. So just be aware of that. But we do make other things available.
Okay, anything else from the association? No? Okay, we do have a public comment section. We didn't ask for signups, but if you wouldn't mind, if you have any statement stating your name before addressing us, that would be great. So,
Public comment time?
yes, it's now public comment time.
I'm Jared Madden, he's on Sky. I'm just trying to figure out where you guys are trying to put me on the airport. I've asked Steven a couple weeks ago, I've got crickets from you. It's obvious you kind of know where you want me, over there by this tower that you're gonna put in. I just like to know where it is, so I can get on there and make my landing area nice and safe for my jumpers.
We talked about it was basically the same spot that we talked about that you're landing at this year.
The same spot. Yes. Okay, can we get a lease in place?
If you'd like to, that's why I asked you, do you want us to do a lease in it or not a lease?
Yes, I want a lease.
We can start working through a lease.
Okay, sounds good.
Anything else? Is that it?
That's all.
Yeah, okay. Mike, did you? Okay,
Mike Hinkowski. I have a question about the beacon. I've heard that it's on a building that's in jeopardy of collapsing. Has that been condemned? Is it really collapsing?
So the building itself is actually separating. It's
Okay,
actually pushing the cement and everything
You
out.
put your hand through the wall.
okay. So you're relocating it to a pole, and I'm just curious as to what the cost of that relocation might be.
So typical beacons are 20 to 30,000 or something. Yeah, maybe more. And realistically, the beacon's not the expensive part.
Right, I understand that. It's the infrastructure that supports the beacon, because you have to put electrical in there and all the rest that goes along with it. Can't you use the old beacon? Is it obsolete for some reason?
So the beacons actually come as one package. It's a tilt down tower. It's one full package. And the beacon that's on there is, it's not that design.
Well, it seems like that's kind of at the corner of the airport. It seems like a beacon should be more centrally located. And that one certainly is where it's at, but did you ever investigate the possibility of putting it on another structure like the fire station?
We don't want to put structure. The problem is how do you access something on a structure? You have a tilt down, it's easy to change lights, maintenance costs are far simpler. If you look at most beacons on most airports, they're tilt down towers.
And the one that's on the building now is a medium intensity light, and the one that's going to be the new one will be a high intensity to go along with the high intensity lights on 624.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment?
Make a
Okay,
motion to adjourn then.
okay, seconds, okay, all in favor? Aye, okay, thank you all very much.